What's up and welcome to another Duskmourn set review. This time we are all about the colorless cards. If you've been following along, we've done white, we've done blue, we've done black, we've done red, we've done green, we've done multicolored, and now we're on to colorless. Then we'll have one more special showcase after this where we'll cover the lands. I'll actually put these in order in the playlist, so if you want to watch them in order, they kind of build on each other. I'm learning the set as we go. We're reading the cards together sometimes on some of the cards. I've seen obviously some of the preview cards, and we're kind of piecing together strategy around the different cards. And so if this is the first video you're catching this series, welcome. I am a aspiring pro Magic the Gathering player, starting at the very bottom and having to learn things like draft, having to learn things like different formats of constructed. I've really only ever played standard. So I've been doing modern RCQs and in-person draft events, as well as my bronze to mythic run here on my YouTube channel, as well as, I live stream that whenever I'm doing those. So if you want to follow along on something like that, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can go visit my website, halfpump.com. You'll find the links to all my social media. But here on YouTube, it's free to just like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm. If you like Magic content, that's what this channel is all about. We're just going to be playing Magic the Gathering and having a good time doing it. But I've never done a set review before. So I figured, why not start with Duskmourn, the next set released. And so without further ado, let's do what you came here to watch, and that is me go through the next cards in the set. So we're going to switch over here to our other view, and we're going to start with the common colorless cards. This is going to be much faster than some of the other videos because there's only 5. There's 5 at common level. The first one we run into is Bear Trap at 1 colorless mana. And that is going to be an artifact with flash, and it will have pay 3, tap, sacrifice Bear Trap. It deals 3 damage to a target creature. So essentially it's 4 to do 3 damage. Overall, I would I use it in limited? Maybe if I needed something to sack. Does it have a place in constructed? Maybe. Overall, I think it's just an underpowered card. I could definitely see it in a commander deck where you need cheap artifacts to do stuff to. So I could definitely see it there. But overall, I think it's going to be less than average value and kind of hard to play in a limited format. 4 mana for 3 damage. There's just better cards to choose in that slot. Really what you would be using it for is a cheap artifact for something. And I think the place that you see needing cheap artifacts for something the most is in Commander. So let's take a look at the next one that we see here. This is a 1 CMC called Found Footage, just 1 colorless, and it's an artifact clue type. You may look at face down creatures your opponents control anytime. I think this is actually kind of quirky and powerful. Because you can also pay 2 and sacrifice Found Footage, surveil 2, and then draw a card. Like, this might be a one-of that I would snag, especially if people are, really gravitating towards the Dread, Manifest Dread format or strategy in limited. I might snag a one-of just to be able to, like, peek their cards and then get some card draw. But overall, again, this is a cheap artifact that you would see, I think, a lot in commander decks. Maybe there's a strategy and constructed for this. I think it's just cute. It's cute. Be able to peek at their cards, see what they're about. Next up, we have a 2 CMC, so 2 colorless, is the Friendly Teddy with way too many eyes and clearly teeth in the chest. I don't want anything to do with this. This is an artifact creature bear toy, and then when Friendly Teddy dies, each player draws a card. So it's a 2/2 for 2, and then if it dies, each player draws a card. So I think that makes it a little bit undervalued or under average value. So I would probably skip over it in a limited format. Like, I don't want them drawing cards. Like, you're trying to take every advantage you can in limited. There might be some play for this, again, in a commander deck, cheap artifact that can do something, drawing cards, things like that. There was a Delirium card that made the enemy player draw cards, but then like reduce their max hand size down to your Delirium counter, essentially. And so if you had 4 or more cards, they would essentially only be able to hold 3. So every time they draw a card, they would have to discard a card. So that might play into that, but I think it would be pretty hard to make work in limited. Next up is Glimmer Light. 2 CMC for 2 colorless is an artifact equipment. When Glimmer Light enters, create a 1/1 white glimmer enchantment creature token. Equipped creatures get +1/+1. And this is equip 1. So get a white glimmer token. Look at that. It's a little bunny rabbit. So it creates a 1/1, and then you can also equip it to something and give it 1/1. So it's a 2/2 for 2. Again, commander deck, yeah, you can move it around for really cheap. It might work well for an old combo where you need to equip stuff like Nadu, but you know Nadu's banned. So where else might it function? Again, I would have a hard time drafting this or putting it into a limited format deck. But you might find some need for it in like the commander or an older format with a cheap equip cost. Next up in the common and final in the common rarity in our colorless cards here for 6 CMC, so 6 colorless, is Malevolent Chandelier, is a 4/4 artifact creature construct with flying. And then you can pay to put target card from a graveyard on the bottom of your owner's library, activate only as a sorcery. So this might work with a very specific game strategy where I have the ability to go find cards out of my library and I need to get them out of the graveyard and into the library. So this could do some fun stuff in a commander deck, maybe a very specific, like constructed, maybe older format deck. I would have a hard time using this in a limited capacity. That was too expensive, not enough body to make a lot of sense. Let's go on to uncommon colorless cards. Only 5 here as well. So starting in the 1 slot for 1 CMC and 1 colorless or 1 colorless, it's Keys to the House. It's an artifact. You can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice Keys to the House, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle. I can also pay 3, tap it, sacrifice Keys to the House, lock or unlock door of target room you control, activate only as a sorcery. So this is huge. Essentially for 4, I'm able to then unlock a room. And there are some expensive rooms, like 7, 8 cost rooms. So for half the cost, I could unlock a room. So if you are doing a room deck in limited, which I think is definitely a possibility, having something like this as like a 1-of would be really nice. Maybe a 2-of if it comes around. And you have a lot of really expensive rooms with abilities you really want to unlock, then that second ability is for sure really interesting. You could build a room commander deck and do some really interesting stuff with that. There's something where you're definitely going to have more land on the table because you're alive longer. So that is all something that you can consider. If you're not in that archetype, I would pretty much just not include this in my draft. Next up is Saw. 2 CMC for 2 colorless is an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may sacrifice a permanent other than that creature or Saw. If you do, draw a card. So 2 mana to give something +2 as equipped 2 cost, and it's just card draw for sacrificing a. You may sacrifice a permanent other than the creature you do draw. Is it sacrifice one of your permanents? Just says sacrifice. Yeah, I guess to sacrifice it has to be yours. It's obviously getting late for me. So yeah, sacrificing one of your creatures or permanents. Maybe if you need a way to get things into the graveyard, or you have a bunch of cheap tokens that you're willing to get rid of and you need card draw. But overall, I don't think this was going to be high on my limited list. Maybe some edge cases for constructed, and then cheap artifacts always can find a place in commander decks. Next up is Attack in the Box for 3 CMC, 3 colorless mana. Is a 2/4 artifact creature toy. Whenever Attack in the Box attacks, you may put or have it get +4/+0 until end of turn. If you do, sacrifice it at the beginning of your next end step. So you could essentially swing with it twice as a 6/4. I don't mind that. I mean, I would put that in the draft list. It's a nice body at 2/4, and then I can put it down 1 turn. Next turn, have it swing as a 6/4, and then next turn have it swing as. So I get 2 turns to swing as a 6/4. I'll take it for 3 colorless. So I would snag that in a limited format. Now in a constructed, I think you're too busy building a synergy. So I think that would be too tough, but in Commander, this would definitely find some play. This is a fun little art. I kind of like this one. So Haunted Screen, 3 CMC or 3 colorless. It's an artifact. You can tap it and add a white or a black. I can pay 1 life, add a green, blue, or red. Or I can pay 7, put 7 1/1 counters on Haunted Screen. It becomes a 0/0 spirit creature in addition to its other types. Activate only once. So if you need some mana smoothing, maybe grabbing this for a limited deck, like maybe you're splashing a 3rd color. But maybe, like I said, it's so expensive. It might just be easier to, save the slot for cards that are more synergistic with your deck, and then just splash the color in. So it would be pretty hard. Again, a commander deck, you could do some really interesting things, and I don't think it's going to fit in constructed very well. Next up, we have Conductive Machete, which is pretty cool here. We got an electric machete. I don't mind that. It's 4 CMC for 4 colorless, is artifact equipment. And when Conductive Machete enters Manifest Dread, then attach Conductive Machete to that creature. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. So for 4 mana, essentially you're making a 4/3. And then you have a +2/+1. It's kind of expensive for what it is. It might go well as like a 1-of in a Manifest Dread limited deck that you might be making. It might fit into a Manifest Dread constructed deck. But for the most part, I think this is a little too expensive for what it is. And again, we might find it in a commander deck as an equipment, an artifact equipment. So kind of is what it is. I'm not super impressed with this one in any way. Not really good value, less than average value, probably like a C- on value. If C is average value, this is a C-. And then it's expensive to re-equip. It's the full cost to re-equip, and you don't get the 2/2 creature. So I would even bring it down like D+. Honestly, it's not that great all around. So that finishes up the uncommon color list. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 3 rare cards that we have here. So first up is Ghost Vacuum at 1 CMC for 1 colorless. It's an artifact, and you can tap it, exile target card from your graveyard, from a graveyard. So it can do your opponent's graveyard. I can pay 6 and tap and sacrifice Ghost Vacuum. Put each creature card exiled with Ghost Vacuum onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. So I wouldn't see myself using this in limited. I think this could be fun in Commander. Again, you're just exiling cards from graveyards. It's an artifact, so it's a bit hard to remove. And so it's getting nice and big. You're taking creatures with fun keywords or triggerable abilities or things like that. And then turning 6 and now you have 6 interesting creatures on the board. So I definitely see a place in Commander. I think it's not going to be a good place in constructed or in limited formats. Good old Marvin the Murderous Mimic. Oh, God, the Puppet Master movies. Anything with these toys and Puppet Masters creeps me out. So 2 CMCs, so 2 colorless, is a 2/2 legendary artifact or creature toy. So it's an average cost. It's a 2/2 body for 2. But let's see what it does. Marvin the Murderous Mimic has all activated abilities of creatures you control that don't have the same name as this creature. So I would definitely draft this in a limited format or play it in a limited format if given the card. And I want to copy the abilities, activated abilities of other cards I control. At the very least, it's a 2/2 for 2, so it's a curve out on the bodies. If I'm low on 2/2s, definitely snagging this, or low on 2 drops, I would definitely snag this. If I have a lot of really interesting activated abilities, this is just a way to like aggregate those into a single card and be able to continue to use them. So I think it's situational, but it does have a place in limited formats. Obviously, Commander is going to fit well. It's a cheap artifact creature toy, so we can do stuff with that. Plus, it's copying everything. This thing is just insane. It's just copying everybody's activated abilities. So definitely going to see it there. Constructed, I don't think we're going to see it. Maybe in the older formats where you're trying to do something, but that's neither here nor there. Next up is Dissection Tools. So 5 CMC for 5 color. This is an artifact equipment. When Dissection Tools enters Manifest Dread, then attach Dissection Tools to that creature. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has Death Touch and Lifelink. Equip, sacrifice a creature. So 5 mana for a 4/4 with Death Touch and Lifelink. Okay. Because it automatically attaches. And then it can be re-equipped by sacrificing a creature. So this is something that, obviously works well in a Manifest Dread deck, but could also work well in a token deck where you're going wide with tokens and you need to sacrifice a creature. I was like borderline gonna cough there. So it could go on your go wide decks where you have a bunch of cheap creatures you could sacrifice to move it around. It could have some value. So maybe like this would definitely be a one of like a synergistic card. I've already built a solid Manifest Dread strategy. And I want just a little bit more Manifest Dread and some tools to use. Like I could see sort of a one-off, maybe taking this in a limited format. Again, Commander, I definitely think you could do some interesting things with it, but it is kind of expensive. Generally, you want like cheap artifacts. But the fact that you can give things Death Touch and Lifelink, Commander loves keywords, so I could see a place for that. I think it's going to struggle in Constructed, though, for sure. All right, let's go take a look at the Mythic Colorless. Oh, wait. There is none. And so with that, we have completed our set review for Duskmourn's colorless cards. We covered common, uncommon, and rare. There was no mythic level cards in the colorless colorless color scheme, I guess. Colorless scheme. So I hope you appreciate this video. This is my first time doing a set review. I wanted to share my thoughts on whether or not it would fit into limited, whether or not it might fit into constructed or commander, whether or not I would play it. And then we talked a little bit about the art. We talked a little bit about the cards. Maybe shared some fears along the way. But if you're appreciating content like this, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, follow along in my journey as I try to become a pro player. You can go to halfpump.com, catch all of my links. All the support is much appreciated. And as we close out every single video, until next time, we'll catch you at the table.